Hello there, it's Rascal Rich, and you're watching the Fab 5 Collab. Yeah, this week we are talking about same-sex marriage and how some in Congress and in certain state legislatures are scrambling to find some effective responses to a rash of court rulings that have forced some of America's most conservative states to accept gay nuptials. And several states are starting to do something because I think state legislators are getting afraid, very afraid. Some gay marriage foes are backing a bill that was introduced in both chambers of Congress that would leave the states fully in charge of their own marriage policies. And in the states, they're endorsing a multitude of bills that some are intended to protect gay marriage bans, others are asserting rights based on religious freedom, to have nothing to do with gay marriages should those bans be struck down. And let's see, in Utah, Oklahoma, Kentucky, and Virginia, federal judges have voided parts or all of the bans on same-sex marriage in those states that voters approved between 2004 and 2006, and each of those rulings have been stayed pending appeals. They're scrambling to do whatever they can to make those bans stick. In Missouri, for instance, where voters approved a gay marriage ban in 2004, there were 8 Republican House members that filed articles of impeachment against Governor Jay Nixon after he ordered the administration to accept joint tax returns for gay couples who were married outside of the state of Missouri. It's interesting because in Massachusetts and Iowa, where same-sex marriage was won through the courts, there's no religious exemptions at all that are related to the rulings there. In spite of this, though, opponents in certain red states have been proposing these preemptive bills with broad accommodations for religious objectors. And most of the bills have been aimed to protect individuals or businesses for religious reasons who don't want to serve same-sex couples. And I think that stemmed from a situation where there was a baker who had refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple, and this was put in place so that he could defend his decision as a legally protected religious right. Now, most recently, the Kansas House passed a measure that provided this faith-based legal shield for people who refused to provide services to gays and lesbians. It had the details of that. There are certain services that would be exempted, and like bakery, anything that had to do with like probably the nuptials of a gay couple. For instance, bakeries, which are obviously used in weddings, adoption agencies because they don't want gay couples to be able to adopt children. And even as going so far as to say government clerks could make that decision based on their religious reasons for not, serving gay couples. Well, obviously, as a government clerk, then you go in to have something done, they're going to say, no, we aren't going to do it because we're refusing to do it because, we don't believe in what you do. I mean, there was even one in South Dakota where the legislature defeated the bill, but it would have barred lawsuits or criminal charges against the clergy who refused to perform same-sex weddings. First of all, I don't know of any states where the clergy, a clergyman or a preacher or a priest is required to perform any wedding for anybody, let alone a same-sex couple. So it's an unnecessary law in a case like that, because it's not something where they're forced to do it in the first place. And it's kind of amazing, since last June, when the Supreme Court ordered the federal government to actually recognize same-sex couples' marriages from those states where they are valid. The court declined to go any further than that and require the states to allow them, only the federal government. Now, I said all of this and gave this run-up to this topic based on, what's going on politically on this subject, but I know where it all stems from this deep-seated view that people are going to lose out because gay couples can get married. And the more the courts say, oh, that's unconstitutional to keep them from getting married, the more you're going to see a backlash from those who are afraid of breaking the tradition of what marriage has actually always been. They really have no valid point for saying, well, that's the way it should be, other than opening the books in the Bible and saying, this is the way marriage is and this is what God intended. That's just saying to me, well, you're trying to force your religious view upon me. I don't care if your church only marries straight couples. That is of no concern to me whatsoever. But when I go down to the courthouse and I say, I want to marry this guy and I want to live with him the rest of my life and I want to be able to combine our assets and I want to be able to get the same tax exemptions and benefits that everybody else gets, I think it's wrong that those that say, oh, the Bible says it shouldn't be so, and we want to pass a law based on what the principles in the Bible say. I'm like, well, now you're forcing your religious belief upon me, and that is not what this country is about. That's not what the Constitution is about, regardless of what those people say. And they try to, spoil it by saying, well, the Founding Fathers wanted X, Y, and Z. That's actually not what the Founding Fathers wanted. The Founding Fathers wrote things in the Constitution specifically that said everyone is created equal and that all people should have the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, I as a gay person cannot do that if they're constantly wanting to write laws that discriminate specifically against me as a gay person, and that is what they're trying to do. I see it as this congruence of a bunch of old traditional interests from people that's based on religious beliefs. I see that what they think is going on is that they see their wonderful little snow white world falling down around them and they don't know what to do about it. So consequently, they seem to be grasping at straws, grasping at whatever they can to turn this back around. And they're fighting furiously to do it. And anytime someone gets that upset and the furiousness and the hate and the bigotry comes out the way it has over this issue, it makes me rather afraid of what might happen in the future. Those particular things that we have gained over the past few years as gay people could probably be taken away just about as quickly. Just with the flick of a pen or a specific vote or getting a certain appointment into the courts, you never know what could happen. So I hope that we as gay people do not take this with a grain of salt and say, it's all going to be all right. I don't know that. I think we're going to need to fight for every little ounce of sugar that we can get. So don't sit back on the laurels that we have gained so far. While those are good and they play in our favor, it's not something that we can take for granted. That's all I have today. I hope that this has been something that has enlightened you if you didn't know some of these things, and it's an issue that we need to discuss. Please put down in the comments any questions that you might have, or just comment on the issue itself, because we do read all of our comments and we like to see what you have to say. So this is Rascal Rich, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.